Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Brain Muffin at the Movies. And here we have something that I'm not sure is a rumor. I'm not sure if it's a troll job from Doomcock or Overlord DVD, as he's known on YouTube. I don't know what's going on, but I find it very, very interesting. So the other day, this video popped up, and I watched it for a little while. And Doomcock's style is not one that to me, it's just too silly. And I like it when he's a guest on other podcasts and things without the voice and the helmet and all that. But some people really love it. So that's awesome. And so I saw this Disney losing confidence in Captain Marvel, according to source. So I saw this on Facebook, actually. And this is the first, I believe it was the first incarnation of this. I don't think it was an article. And I watched it and I was like, I think it's just Doomcock being silly. And then this popped up in my feed with, I think it was on my tablet actually. With if I remember correctly, I don't remember. Because the thing is on my tablet sometimes I get little tidbits and things when I go to search for something. And also on the browser, I think it's Chrome, when I pop up a new tab, it'll have some things. This is how I find some stuff, and then I'll try and search for it on my computer so I can better do this. So anyway, there was this article, and I didn't understand it. I'm like, why does Spider-Man have anything to do with Captain Marvel, the Disney losing confidence in Captain Marvel? I have on other videos, and this is ideas that I've heard from others, and I do agree with, that the Phase 4 idea was the Avengers was Spider-Man and Captain Marvel, replacing, so Spider-Man essentially becoming an analog for Iron Man with the tech. Now, granted, not so much the attitude, but some of the tech and other things. This is why we had a more technically oriented Spider-Man suit. And I know some people were calling it the Iron Spider and that type of stuff. And then Captain Marvel taking the place of Captain America. You have the red, white, and blue motif. I know it's gold, but just bear with me. But you have this, rah-rah kind of thing. And the two kind of coming together. In many ways, Captain Marvel is kind of like Captain America and Thor ground into one. Basically indestructible, more or less immortal. And then with Thor going off to do the Asgardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that, I thought, okay. So a rumor claims that Disney has lost confidence in Brie Larson. So it's claimed that Disney, Marvel Studios, and Kevin Feige are going to use Spider-Man and Tom Holland to help make Brie Larson and Captain Marvel more likable. I don't know about that. I think part of the problem, Captain Marvel has decades of baggage of being unlikable and not doing well. It is a character that has been rebooted many times. It's been male and female and black and white and I think even Alien a couple times. And I don't know why they've always failed. Now, recently, I think a lot of it's the way that they're written. There's all this SJW messaging behind it that people don't care for. But it's not like this is a well-loved, long-endured character that suddenly got an SJW makeover, and that's why people are upset. It's just never caught on for decades. So I thought now, granted, I don't know Brie Larson personally, and I don't know what she's like personally, but in the movies, the Captain Marvel character at least comes across as very wooden. And again, don't know if that's her acting style, don't know if that's what the director wanted, probably a combination of the both. I think the character was very poorly written. I've not seen Captain Marvel, but I haven't seen about a third of the MCU movies. So me not seeing it is no big deal. I finally recently saw Ant-Man. I'm sort of interested in seeing Ant-Man 2, but it's like, yeah, I got enough of Ant-Man's backstory from Civil War and whatever other one he was in that I was like, I don't care. It's just too much. So, but this character felt very shoehorned in. She should have, if this was really part of the plan, she should have shown up much earlier than she did, the character. But it claimed, but not Spider-Man is gone. Disney is worried about the future of Captain Marvel. Now, I think Disney should be worried. It's more the MCU, because of the remaining characters, Spider-Man was the one with the most charisma. It's one of the most loved characters historically. Of the entire MCU, Spider-Man, the character-wise, Spider-Man and the Hulk are probably the two that, outside of the comic books, let's say with amongst the normies, was more known, right? I mean, Robert Downey Jr. took Iron Man and made this, third-tier character a first tier character. But Marvel, I mean, Spider-Man, I mean, I remember as a kid back in the 70s, we had Spider-Man movies, well, made for TV movies, Spider-Man TV show. Spider-Man was a part of the Avengers for a while. Spider-Man and Thor were the two that I knew growing up. And of course, Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, Aquaman, because we had the Justice League and the Super Friends and stuff like that. It was all the DC stuff, and we had the Wonder Woman TV show. We had the pretty good Christopher Reeve Superman, 1 and 2 movies. We had the Batman TV show reruns from the '60s, that kind of campy, and I know that was a big hubbub back in the day. And we had Shazam. We had Shazam as in Marvel, the Captain Marvel Shazam character from the DC side. And so growing up, a lot of the stuff was DC, and only a little bit of it was Marvel that I remember. And I'm sure there were shows that were on that I don't remember. It's been 40 plus years. But anyway, interesting enough, as seen in Spider-Man 2 Far From Home, Tom Holland is first to have name dropped Captain Marvel in the MCU. Okay. I haven't seen that movie, but it's also interesting that Brie Larson was supposed to be the face of the MCU going forward and the new leader of the Avengers and the most powerful character in the MCU. That's true. However, Kevin Feige didn't announce Captain Marvel 2 as being part of the MCU slate, which is heavily female oriented, and Feige only hinted at the sequel being announced in the future. I think there's a lot of wait and see here. I think this is in part why so much of it has been announced on Disney Plus, because there's 3 things minimum going on here. One is the closeout of Phase 3, and really Chris Evans and Robert and other characters kind of fading away. You have kind of the rebuilding of Asgard, because that's been destroyed. And then you have some backstory things with the Black Widow movie and stuff like that, and we get a Black Panther 2. And so you've had the biggest personality in the entire MCU, and I'd say the 2 biggest. So you had Chris Evans, so you had Captain America, and you had Iron Man. I believe the 2 biggest personalities in the MCU, they're gone. And so you have a big changing of the guard. Spider-Man was supposed to be part of that. There's this big push for women, even though we've had female-led Marvel movies previously, a couple 15 years ago, and we've had female-led movies years ago. We had black-led Marvel movies with Blade back in the 90s. There's this big push. Can we continue this with multiples? I mean, you can take what you want from it as far as the politics and all that other stuff. So there are a lot of things going on here. Plus, you have Disney trying to launch Disney Plus, and yeah, I think there's enough back catalog for some things, but for newer fans, they need a newer material. And so I really think there's a wait and see. I think there's a Captain Marvel 2 out there, but it may be, what is it? I think it feels like they're slowly getting away from these single films, and we'll just do several of them, more combined. Captain Marvel hasn't. Yeah, I think there's just wait and see, because if Disney Plus fails, Disney's in a world of hurt right now. The Galaxy's Edge is not doing well. Star Wars is not doing well. This, in particular, the merchandising sales. Forget the ticket sales can be faked, and there's a lot of evidence that there were some monkey business going on there, but merchandise is not selling, and Disney is losing money. They are bleeding money. They've closed parks. They're going to have to start selling off stuff if things don't pick up. So I think there's a big, huge wait and see here, because it might be everything goes to Disney Plus because that's all they can do, and that's all they can afford. I think they went too big too fast, and with Sony pulling Spider-Man, that really pulls the rug out from under them. So as I also pointed out, that Marvel is apparently bringing back, so this is the other thing. So we already see evidence with Robert Downey Jr. already coming back for Phase 4, even if it's just voiceovers and stuff. I think that is right there a sign that they aren't confident, and it could be Brie Larson, it could be the character. I think it's the whole thing. It is a huge gamble because of 11 years being built with Robert Downey, and to him be gone is a huge gamble to continue this. This is one of these things where they're probably better off just stopping it and waiting a few years and then kind of ushering in something else. Let the fatigue and the exhaustion and the hype and all that die down, and then start to build it back up. But they're already neck deep in it. They can't stop now. So obviously, if Brie Larson was a new face of the MCU going forward, Captain Marvel and Carol Danvers would be a bigger part of Phase 4. Presently, they are not. So Captain Marvel and Brie Larson, big trouble, says rumor inside. So here we have Overlord DVD. This is why I started with him, because this actually gets mentioned in a couple different places. That does not do not well and has lost confidence in the character. Disney's having Brie Larson fatigue, and they have lost confidence in her and her direction of her movie. And now, moving with Captain Marvel, the YouTuber claims, who stresses this to be considered rumor at this time. Marvel. This is why I think this is a tongue in cheek, but there's a lot of evidence that the Disney execs have some manner of not trusting of what's going on. Marvel and plans for Captain Marvel, what those plans are utterly derailed by the loss of Spider-Man to Sony. Now, I think that is true. Because, again, as I said, that I think that Spider-Man was taking Iron Man's place. Captain Marvel's taking Captain America's place. You need that dynamic between the two different ideals of how to lead, what they should be doing. This is what led to the Civil War stuff. Do we register? Do we not register? There's been a lot of rumors, even with X-Men and stuff like that, because we have some mutants, and but we don't have a whole lot. But that's kind of on the sidelines and been rebooted, and what are they going to do with that? There's been all kinds of. There's been several different. There's a TV show that they tried to do. Some other things that have gotten canned. Some stuff was filmed. We saw trailers, and then they just put the kibosh on it. So I think a lot of it is Disney is not sure what it wants to do. And Spider-Man is the only character, forget actor. Spider-Man is the only character that's kind of in this new phase that has a following large enough to carry on some of these movies. And Sony owns the movie rights and has pulled back. I know, and I think in some ways Sony was being a bit of a jerk here, because Marvel was putting up the money for these movies, and then they weren't getting anything on the back end, and that was part of the problem. I think Sony could have ponied up some money, because I can't imagine if Marvel's ponying up money and Sony's ponying up money for these movies, in particular stuff with Spider-Man in them, they could have been unbelievably fantastic. Or they could, obviously they could have been flawed, but imagine $300 million being spent on production. Counting on pairing up her with Spider-Man in order to now, I don't know about humanize and balance her out a bit. The balance her out a bit, yes. Humanize, maybe not, because I think the Captain Marvel character, the way she's been portrayed recently, I don't think it's going to be right to have a man make her more human, if you will. I think that's going to have to be some dynamic between her and Monica. And I'm not suggesting some kind of romantic relationship. I think some kind of caring relationship. Either something happens to Monica Rambeau, or something where there's a tension there that leads Captain Marvel to remember her humanity and remember Carol before all of the stuff. But they made men so hateful in her entire background and so beyond any stereotype silliness that it's going to be tough to have a man break that mold. It'll feel cheap. I think it has to be something that is a close relationship, something where she needs a bit of humility needs to be introduced, but they've made her so powerful it's going to be very, very tough. The YouTuber also goes to say the reason that Sony may not have wanted Spider-Man to continue in the MCU is because of Kevin Feige's politically correct route he has taken for Phase 4, which he is doing, which among other things sees Feige race bin, gender swap, classic Marvel characters, which happened to Captain Marvel to an extent. I don't know about that, but because we saw some stuff with Sony previously where they have made some of the villains and things, they made black characters. They didn't make a big deal about it. And I think that's part of it. It's like, just do it, but don't make a big deal about it. And there are gay characters in the Marvel Universe, but they're not utilizing them. That's part of the problem, too. It's like, don't change the character. There already exist characters, or create new ones. A lot of these characters are just bits and pieces of 3 or 4 different other characters that come together to form a new idea, a new avenue of exploring for stories. And don't forget that character development is very important. The story is more important than the special effects, and more and more the story is getting more and more dull, and the special effects are becoming more and more tedious. It's like, oh, we're going to have a fight. This is why I didn't like Civil War. The writing was horrible, and it was just, they're punching each other again. This is the 5th movie in a row that they've done this, and I'm tired of it. A YouTuber claims Spider-Man was going to be used as a second banana to Captain Marvel, meaning she would have belittled Spidey in order to prop herself up. Now that is probably true, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that is the big problem with a lot of these poorly written female characters. This is what's wrong with Doctor Who. This is what's wrong with STD for the new Star Trek. You don't have to lower male characters to elevate female characters. They can both be elevated together. A rising tide raises all boats, as it were. I think if you start with that, this is toward her character development. If they started with that kind of idea and moved her toward discovering her humanity again, and realizing, even though, because of the men of her past, she doesn't have to contend, but she can overcome and be bigger and better than her past. That would be a great storyline to follow over the next, say, 3 or 4 years. But if there's no interest in that, and there's no interest in developing that, then yeah, don't even start. Spidey would have been the butt of jokes, which I don't know. So to promote DC's PC feminist agenda, so Sony saving Spider-Man from Disney and Marvel. Regarding Sony, the YouTuber claims that that unfortunately for Marvel, Sony has other plans for Spider-Man, plans that don't involve Spidey being second best and a cuck. And maybe, but Sony, I mean, they did okay with Into the Spider-Verse, and they did okay with Venom, but the Fantastic Spider-Man movies were horrible. And my contention with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man is the third one was what happens with Sony because that should have been like 3 more movies. There was too much going on there, and what it feels like is movie execs told Raimi, you've got to cram all this stuff in. I mean, I don't know the full background there, but it's definitely worse than the other ones. And some of the ideas that he explored with the hipster Spider-Man and all that, Peter Parker, I actually liked some of that because of the cringe factor. But there was way too much that went on there. I think if he fights Sandman and you have the beginnings of the Green Goblin, the Hobgoblin rather, in that, and he shows up in the next one, and it takes a while for the two characters to have come together, kind of like what they did at the end, where he was helping save Mary Jane, and I forget the character's name, that's why I'm not saying it, but Hobgoblin's, it was his friend. That could have been great to explore over, say, a movie and a half. You have one where they're really, he's coming to his own, or he's getting other henchmen to do his dirty work, and then he's kind of behind, similar to what we had with Vader, right? In the first movie, Vader is this dark character. He does confront Kenobi, but it's, this is why the end of Rogue One doesn't work, because Vader sends in his ground troops to slaughter everybody and then steps over the dead bodies. And something like that with Hobgoblin, and eventually have some kind of redemption arc between him and Peter. But it was all thrown into one movie, and it just didn't work. And now they're stuck with a rigged, unlikable hero with no personality and no plan going forward. Now, I think there's some truth there. And I think mainly, so what might happen, although they're going to have to really change the character and the way he is they could bring in Black Panther to take Spider-Man's place in the Avengers. The biggest problem is he's really stuck running a country, right? He's a prince of Wakanda, and there's that dynamic of leaving that state behind to be a hero for the world. Now, that would be a very interesting thing to explore in, say, a Black Panther 2, where he has to appoint several people probably to help run the country and protect everything, make things going forward. So it allows him the space. So delegations, really, what I'm going after, it allows him the space to then become a bigger hero for the world, and he could fill that gap. That's a very stern and strong character, and have a stern and strong character like that with limited personality outside of that, going against a very stern and strong character in Captain Marvel with no personality, that really, I don't know if that dynamic works very well. Now, Thor of Thor 3, the one Ragnarok, that one I actually like, that a lot of people hate because it's the Thor cracking jokes, that could work. Star-Lord doesn't work. He does not have the leadership dynamic to go against Captain Marvel, and he's a suit. And that's also the problem with with Black Panther for some degree. At least Spider-Man is a little bit more than a suit, but it could work because Batman and Superman work in that dynamic, and Batman's a suit, so that could. But Because maybe, I mean, and it may be if you utilize a movie to transition, say, Black Panther into, I don't turn him into a Tony Stark where he's, raving about women and all that, but, if you look at Phase 1 Tony Stark, he's really a jerk and egotistical maniac, really, in many ways. And that's not necessary, and Spider-Man isn't that, but you need some kind of juxtaposition with Captain Marvel. I don't see them doing it effectively with Black Widow or Valkyrie, and I think that would make it, you'd get too many haters going, oh my God, it's all women in charge, and that's all they're going to see no matter how good they're done. So we'll see with that. Wasn't always correct. B says YouTuber Captain Marvel's on shaky ground. The company's losing confidence in the character. Now I will say this, there's a lot of shenanigans about the Captain Marvel movie sales. A lot of sold out empty theaters all across the country. But she did do well in China, so that's where it went over the $1 billion. So it does, and so we'll see. So the article's just going on more and more, really just kind of quoting Doomcock on his. And again, I've seen most of the video, and it feels like it's somewhat of a tongue-in-cheek joke, and it's like, hey, let's see if we can troll the internet. So the reason I had these other, so that was from Cosmic Comic News, and I know I'm going long on this thing, but in Reddit they also said basically just to have a report to remove it. So Reddit, never trust anyone. So this has gone on and on and on. Officially, will return as that. There's Civil War II, choosing sides. I don't know about that. A new helmet for Thor Ragnarok. There's a lot of things on Reddit. And then over on, we've got this covered. This is kind of what came to my attention as well, and I realized on my tablet that again it's quoting Doomcock. Overlord DVD is known is on YouTube, but you can follow him on Twitter as Doomcock. So. And then this article is really going into this the very same thing, not to mention despite all these trolls trying to sabotage its reputation online. And I know some, I've actually met some of these guys, and I know some of them, and some of the women that actually didn't like it. But the biggest problem with Captain Marvel is shoehorned in, a lot of political BS behind it, a very dry actress will say, very poorly written character. We have this, man-hating nonsense that goes on, that these guys they're not even stereotypes. They're just strawmen that don't really exist, and no character development. And then you add on top of that this big push for women that they didn't have to do with Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman had real ticket sales, and then to have all these tickets being bought by some organization and pictures after pictures after pictures being posted on the internet of people who worked in the theater saying this is a sold out showing, and showing a completely empty theater. Other theaters saying every single showing of Captain Marvel, no matter when it was, had 25 no shows in every showing. Also the reports that Disney was strong arming theaters to take Captain Marvel, as well as there was another Disney movie out that came out that they wanted to carry. So you add all the shenanigans together, and it really feels hollow, like it's a hollow victory that it went over $1 billion in sales. And now we also have reports of insiders saying that Disney has been cooking their books for the last few years. So now you have an SEC investigation that could really make all this come crashing down. So you add all these little coincidences, we'll say, and you put all these dominoes in a row, and it's like, this is just, there's too much correlation here for coincidence. And again, but I think this was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing just to kind of troll people. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't say that. To me, what it's probably is Disney is losing confidence in the franchise without Spider-Man, because going forward, Spider-Man is the largest draw character-wise of anybody left in the MCU, and that is a problem. He's not, this character not being there. Forget if it's, Brie Larson and Tom Holland. Forget all that. Just the character alone. There's no characters left in there unless they do something with Thor, and it looks like they're going to mess that up with the Love and Thunder nonsense. Doctor Strange isn't big enough. No one from Guardians of the Galaxy is big enough. Maybe Rabbit is. But and that's the problem. To me, that's my biggest takeaway, is that is the big issue, and there may be a bunch of underlying things and how you want to spin it and how you want to report it. Live in the basement, famming the porn stars. Announced Captain Marvel is being developed in SD just 2 months ago. You utter clowns. I think Disney can go screw. Stop blaming March. Other screw up with Sony. Disney is an overrated ball of crap. I still think Sony's the bad guy. That's what I did in my video. I started on an article thinking, man, Disney has just screwed the pooch. And then I'm like, I think Sony's the one that got angry and went home with their ball. So anyway, and if it is a troll job, my hat is off to Overlord DVD. If you are just really doing this and see how far it would go, and maybe this is what I need to start doing, to start making rumor videos. I don't know, but to get my channel growing. But anyway, that's my take on it. And if so, they all took the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and he's just reeling them in, laughing and giggling all the way to the bank. And but I think there is some lack of confidence, but I think it's really because the character of Spider-Man and the decades of Spider-Man being popular is really the big problem for Disney, not everything else. All right, thanks very much, and we'll see you. Goodbye.